Friends and watchers of illusion, welcome to another Delboy film retrospective and unboxing. And I just want to start this one up by saying it's funny how, as I've watched films through the years, I've come to love them all. I've loved science fiction, I love comedies, I love westerns, I love horror. And as we've gone through the years, things have mixed up a little bit. You know, we've combined comedy with drama, comedy, drama, sci-fi, horror, drama, comedy. And so we've sort of like enriched certain films, and to a certain extent, it's really worked. So we're going to be talking about a film today that's quite unusual. This one is a sci-fi western, and it goes back to 1981. And people who might have heard that word sci-fi western before are probably going to know what the name of this film is. But I'm just going to show you the box of it now. It's a personal favourite of mine. It is called Outland. There we go. It's a Peter Hyams film made in 1981. Peter Hyams was coming off of a very successful film before this one, which is another personal favourite of mine, called Capricorn 1. And after this film, he went on to do another science fiction film, which was the follow-up to 2001, called 2010, The Year We Made Contact. And the familiarity of this director with this genre is the special effects have always been of the no computer generation. It's miniatures and optical effects only of around about the time. And based on the subject matter, they haven't tried to be anything fancy either. You don't tend to find laser beams and super fast ships that are going at warp speed in Peter Hyams's films, and you're certainly not going to get it in Outland. The music for this one is done by Jerry Goldsmith. Again, people who know me know a favourite composer of mine. He'd just come off of doing some absolute fantastic scores. So in 1979, Jerry Goldsmith had done Alien. He'd done Star Trek. He'd just done Omen 3 in the same year, plus Poltergeist and First Blood. First Blood being an absolute corker of a score. And what they wanted in this film is a film similar to Sound of Alien, because you wanted to have a sort of film that has echoes of emptiness, which Alien has in abundance. The movie studio is the Ladd Company. Now, that name seems to be coming up quite a bit because I last mentioned that company with Looker. And this film is done by the Ladd Company, and they've done also Chariots of Fire and Blade Runner. So it's a pedigree film studio. And the producer for this is done by Stanley O'Toole. That name didn't ring too many bells to me until I started to look into it. And my God, has he done some crackers. He went on to do Enemy Mine, Lionheart, and Quigley Down Under, another Western. So, knowing all of this, you would think, how could it lose? The only thing that could possibly make it lose is the mixing of the Western genre and science fiction. But apparently that hasn't hindered it at all. In fact, looking at this, it's quite well received and quite well liked, but more of a cult film. It had a budget of around about 18 million, and when this came out, it really just broke even. So, although it wasn't a flop, it wasn't any massive hit either. So who stars in this? Well, we got Sean Connery. He plays Federal Marshal William O'Neill. He's sort of on a new tour of duty. on a mining colony, which is on a planet near Jupiter called Io. Now, the film was going to be called Io at first, but when you look at it on the poster, it looks like 10 or low. So they decided to go with a slightly different name of Outland. It also stars Peter Boyle. He's the general manager of the mining colony, called Mark Shepherd. He's a sort of a shady type of guy, not likable at all when we first meet him. Looking back at Peter Boyle, he's played quite a lot of those types of characters. I think the film that I saw around about this time was Young Frankenstein, where he's in that. That's a more comedy role, though, so not really in the same genre as this one. And the other notable cast member in this is a lady called Frances Sternhagen. She plays Dr. Lazarus. I've seen her in lots of films, Frances Sternhagen. They don't really come to the fore when I think about her. She's well known. When you see her on screen, you'd go, "Oh, that's her," and then you'll be forever in your head going, "What have I seen her in?" That's pretty much what happens in this. I'm gonna have to go into the story now, aren't I? Because I'm sort of having too much of a good time, sort of explaining all the back on this one. So what Hyams wanted to do is he wanted to make a film of High Noon in space. He was told that the Western was dead in 1981, that there was no chance of him getting any money of doing a Western. So all he did was he saw and noted that science fiction was doing well and decided to move absolutely everything of his story into space. And that's all he did. And the space setting would have been in a setting not too distant to what we're at now. And that was very, very clear at the very beginning. So it's set on a mining colony on the moon Io. The conditions are really, really poor. The new marshal turns up with his family, but right from the very beginning, you can tell that this was not a family-orientated place to live, and the wife and child decide to leave the colony while he's on his first day at work, citing the fact that the child would not do well in the environment that they're in, and the fact that the child had never seen Earth yet. And this is a young child, around about 4 or 5 years old, which gives another grimy type feel to the film, that this is people now with families that have lived in space and never been on Earth. So we then get to meet the general manager, which is played by Peter Boyle. He's boasting that his production level is at an all-time high. The records have never been better than in his control. But after this boast to the marshal, a couple of events occur. There were 2 deaths, and they're quite graphic in this film. That's the other thing that this thing doesn't hide behind. We're talking heads exploding, that type of thing. Walking out into space with no spacesuit on. It's gonna give you a bit of a headache, that. And just as people are starting to wonder what's going on, a third incident occurred. Now, this was between another worker, and this one involved a prostitute. He was threatening to kill her. A kerfuffle happens between Sean Connery and the miner, and the whole thing ends with a shotgun fired at the worker. And this is where the first lot of evidence happens, because we're introduced to Dr. Lazarus. And while Dr. Lazarus is doing the blood work and the autopsy on the body, there is a trace of an amphetamine. So I'm not very good at pronunciation. And this amphetamine is known to increase production like speed would do. You know, if you ever took the drug speed now, you'd know that basically it makes you hyperactive. But long-term use of this drug causes psychotic tendencies. And this is where the investigation starts. And while Sean Connery is investigating, he finds out that the general manager is the person who's been the distributor of this drug. The general manager, now fearing for his career, decides to go back to the owners of the drug, who decide that they're going to send hitmen to kill off this marshal. And that's as far as I'm going to go with this story. It really is high noon in space. You can imagine it's filled with bar scenes that which are space versions of what you would see as a bar in a Western situation. The mining colony could almost be farms and rustlers on an estate in the Old West. The federal marshal, he's very much an alpha male. Sean Connery plays a very strong visual type of person who won't take bullshit and just wants an easy life and totally within the law. He won't be swayed by that. So you've got a real good mix of characters here. The rest of the ensemble cast is absolutely fantastic. And I remember seeing this film on VHS. And it has a little bit of regret because I loved the VHS one, but it wasn't widescreen. The first time I got to see this film in widescreen was on DVD. And I was put off with the DVD because the picture quality was just so poor. It was really, really poor. I remember even having it on my Philips widescreen TV that it was incredibly grainy. And, you know, basically it distracted. The blacks also were more grayish. And this is a very dark film. The good news is that this film has had a 2012 transfer to Blu-ray. And all of those defects are now pretty much taken away. It is a film of its time. It is very dark in its tone and picture, and therefore with low light you will get some grain. But this grain feels the right type of grain. You know, the type of grain you would get because it's actually done on film. You know. Towards the latter half of the film, it does seem to improve slightly. I've never known whether that's because they changed the film stock or not, but it's not a distraction. Nobody looks waxy. I don't think any noise reduction was used. It's just a really, really nice picture done well. And it would really, really, I think, do well on a 4K, where they could use the HDR to raise the color levels up, because it's very neonish in its look. So let's get to open this, shall we? So here's the cover we've got. It's a slip cover. It was very nice. Got that familiar HMV Silver Premium Collection badge at the top. Not very much information on the back other than some technical information about the sound, a bit about the story and what special features are on the film. It's a clear case this time for Blu-ray, not the standard blue sort of like take. Same on the front and back. And then if we open it up, there are some little extras. You do get 2 copies of the film. I believe one is the extras. No, one is the DVD, sorry. And the other one is the Blu-ray. Now, this isn't the DVD copy that I was talking about earlier. I was talking about the first release of this film. So this DVD does have the Blu-ray transfer, but in DVD quality. So just take these discs out and you can see the inside. It's just basically a part of the picture of the film. That poor guy, I think you'll find his head's not going to look like that for very much longer. The discs are plain. So you've got a pure black disc for the DVD. And you've got a blue disc or the Blu-ray. And then just as an extra, there are some postcards. Might as well open these up if I can get the cellophane off. There we go. Try not to bend the cards. There. And these are matte, quite glossy. Standard matte on the back. So we've got there the Marshal himself, O'Neill, with the Warner Brothers symbol at the back. They all have the same symbol at the back. There's a nice picture of Sean Connery with his wife at the beginning of the film. She moves away pretty darn quick. Don't blame her. Then we've got that inside cover that I showed you before. Yes. Well, we all know what happens to him after I've explained that a couple of times. And then a semi of the poster. There are several poster variants for Outland, depending on which country you're in. And that is what you get in the case. And that concludes this review. This is a definite thumbs up. Oh my God, I couldn't give it more of a thumbs up. I'm so glad it's on Blu-ray. It's just, oh, wouldn't it be great if this was on 4K? Don't get me wrong. Some people might not get into this film. Looking at it, it's not the most riveting of stories, is it? But if you can just take your mind away from the science fiction aspect of it, and you want to see a film close to High Noon as a Western, with Gary Cooper, then this is it. And I wholly recommend it. And with that, I'm going to say salute, and hope you'll join me at the next one. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.